So the Labour leadership elections are coming up soon, in September, I believe, is when the votes are going to be cast. So I just want to talk a little bit about Jeremy Corbyn versus Owen Smith, and obviously I don't need to run through what each of them stand for, how each of them have been treated by the media, etc. All of that's pretty clear. But what I will say is that Owen Smith and Jeremy Corbyn have been presented as essentially very similar candidates, essentially the same views, only different kind of minor details. But other than that, basically the same, both of them taking Labour leftwards. And right now, Jeremy Corbyn looks like the favourite to win. But Owen Smith has a kind of a core base of supporters as well. But I just basically wanted to challenge this idea that Owen and Jeremy are essentially the same, because they're not. For one thing, Jeremy Corbyn has been demonised and attacked and slandered, and his supporters have just been derided and mocked by establishment forces from day one, essentially. I mean, the way that the mainstream media has been treating Jeremy has been abhorrent. And, the establishment has just been united in its condemnation of him and of Momentum on a quite industrial scale. Whereas, on the other hand, Owen Smith has not been attacked in anywhere near the same way. He has been supported by mainstream outlets. He is being backed by prominent political figures, and the establishment seems to be cool with him and with what he stands for. So if Jeremy Corbyn and Owen Smith were the same, then the establishment would be united in condemnation of both of them, because both of them would pose an equal threat to the status quo. Whereas the fact that Owen Smith is being supported by these forces, it just basically shows that they can't be the same, that in this race, Jeremy Corbyn is the anti-establishment candidate, whereas Owen Smith is the establishment candidate. So Owen Smith, for example, is supported by people who were involved in architecting the Iraq War, and people who were in Tony Blair's cabinet at the time. And so, the idea that, I think immediately that should make people very wary of supporting him. The fact that he has these establishment figures behind him, people who are anti-Palestinian, people who are just basically entrenched in the establishment and in perpetuating the status quo. The fact that they're standing behind Owen Smith. I'm not saying everyone that supports Owen Smith is like that, and Owen Smith himself seems like a decent guy, but the fact that he has these forces behind him shows that under his leadership there won't be any real fundamental change to the same extent that Corbyn is likely to implement. And Corbyn and Smith do not agree on everything, or even on a lot of key issues. Owen Smith voted to bomb Libya, which has caused untold suffering in that part of the world. It sharply increased civilian casualties, destroyed the functioning government of Libya, just basically propelled Libya into a state of anarchy. You have thousands have been killed. You have ISIS now as a foothold in Libya when previously there was none. You have Libyans fleeing for their lives from this situation we created, refugees coming here and drowning in the Mediterranean. The situation couldn't be worse, and Owen Smith voted for that, whereas obviously Corbyn voted against. Owen Smith also voted voted for UK airstrikes on Iraq in September 2014, which again, it's there's no evidence that it's helping. In fact, a lot of evidence that we've been killing civilians in Iraq. If you go to air wars, they monitor these things. You've seen there have been countless times when UK forces have been implicated in killing Iraqi civilians, the only kind of real evidence of ISIS being defeated is due to Russian airstrikes. Obviously, Russian airstrikes are highly indiscriminate as well, but they're assisting the Assad regime in driving these forces back, whereas what the UK is doing, first of all, doesn't even have much of an impact because it is limited, and it's, if anything, making the situation worse because we're just killing civilians and increasing the conditions in which extremism can thrive. So, I think that, something about Owen Smith is that he believes in this thing called humanitarian intervention. He believes that the reasons why governments get involved in places because they genuinely want to help, and they need to, and they want to help, and sometimes it goes awry, but they're essentially well intentioned, and it is possible to make things better through military intervention. But whereas Corbyn, I don't think Corbyn is someone who believes in humanitarian intervention. I think he sees through the lies, because obviously there's no such thing as humanitarian intervention. Governments don't intervene in places because they really want to help the people who are suffering. There is always for ulterior motives, whether it be oil, whether it be corporate investment, whether it be expanding Western hegemony over places. It's all lies, and I think that's something that Corbyn knows. Owen Smith doesn't see that, I don't think. Which is, he voted to bomb Libya, he voted to bomb Iraq. I think he's someone who's more willing to kind of undertake imperial ventures. And another thing is that Owen Smith, he supports the Snoopers Charter. He voted in favour of the Snoopers Charter, which is an incredibly repressive, draconian piece of legislation. It's something of an anomaly in the entire Western world. No other country, not even America, has such draconian surveillance laws. The majority of British people oppose the Snoopers Charter as well, according to the latest polls. It's something which is highly authoritarian, and it's just on a purely practical level, it's ineffective at combating terrorism. I mean, when the security services engage in bulk collection of data, which is mass surveillance, they're actually overwhelmed with information, so they can't focus in a specific targeted way on individuals who might actually pose a threat. They're monitoring everyone all the time, so it's indiscriminate and suspicionless, and it's authoritarian and leaves us all more vulnerable anyway. And Owen Smith supports the prevent strategy, whereas Corbyn opposes it, and the prevent strategy is effectively another form of surveillance, which is focused primarily on the Muslim community. Owen Smith supports these things, supports essentially political repression, and he supports military intervention. He voted against bombing Syria, but I'm kind of sceptical about why he did that, because he voted to bomb Iraq, voted to bomb Libya. And the Syria vote is the most recent one. So, and that was around the time that Corbyn was leader. So, I don't know whether he was trying to just make himself out to be more less inclined to use military force because he had his sights on the leadership or whatever. But something doesn't ring true about that. But even if that is the case, that he did do it out of a principled conviction that it wouldn't help, he's shown that he is willing in more situations than Corbyn is to use military force. And as we've seen over the past 15 years, all it does is just is just kill more people and increase terrorism, and it's the worst thing that we can possibly do. So I think that all in all, Corbyn is by far the best option. He is the anti-establishment candidate. The fact that he's so hated by the establishment, by the media, is a good thing. It shows that they see him as a real threat, and so we need to invest our energy in supporting him, because we need to scare them. We need to scare the establishment, and we need to let them know that we're not going to tolerate their bullshit anymore. And the best way to send out that message is to vote for Corbyn. The latest scandals which have been manufactured against him are just becoming comical. The one today, by The Guardian about, Virgin Trains, that, when he sat on the floor with passengers as like an act of solidarity because he didn't want a privileged position. Now Virgin Trains are saying that he walked past empty seats to do that, to do that for like a photo opportunity or whatever. And it's called Traingate. It's trending on Twitter, and it's ridiculous. It's bullshit. The fact that they have to stoop to these levels, like Traingate, he chose to sat on the floor when there were empty seats. What a scandal! It's just becoming farcical, and the fact that the media have to resort to such stupid and basic and ineffectual scandals which they personally manufacture, I think is a sign that they're really scared of Corbyn coming to power, which is why we need to make sure that if you're registered as a supporter of the Labour Party, you need to get behind Corbyn. You need to vote for him, because that's the only way real change is going to happen. As I said, Owen Smith seems like a nice guy, but he's nowhere near as radical as Corbyn is. He is the safe option for the establishment. We can't go with the safe option. We need to go with someone who we know is going to carry forward change, or at least try to, for us, not for themselves, not for the political class, for the ruling class. Do it for us. And Corbyn is the best option we have right now.